social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
Cast on this June 9th, 2025. My guest tonight is going to be Trevor Loudon. I'm also going to have with us Mark Nton a little bit later. But Trevor is going to be on with us for a good hour, maybe longer, because we have a lot of history to get to, folks. History you're really, frankly, not going to hear from a lot of other places because some folks just don't know this history. There's a few advantages to getting older, my friends, and one of them is, as I say to my wife and son often, when you get to be a guy that's older, been doing this 35 years, you start to have a lot of history memorized, and you can put things in context that a lot of the younger kids just can't do. So we'll help some of you guys out there on social media. We'll help do some of your homework and show prep for you. Maybe you can grab a few good tweets out of this tonight, if you can keep up, that is. So don't be shocked. Is that fair enough, Logan? So don't be shocked if we go a good hour or more with Trevor Loudon tonight, because I got some historical documents to roll out to help you really understand what's happening. Because many people today are reporting that this is about ICE. It's about illegal immigrants. It's about raiding, Home Depot or job sites and breaking up families and people who've been here for 10 years and paid taxes. And it's just so distressing. I'm sorry, as I will explain tonight with Trevor Loudon, that is just the moral cause. They need a moral cause to wrap it all in, to cause people to think that there's some kind of moral high ground that they're joining when they join the revolution in America. This Marxist Islamic red-green axis that we've been talking about for years. Folks, who is funding this? Who is behind this? Dare we say it is enemies, foreign and domestic, Islamic countries, Marxist organizations, networks, the CCP and others, Chinese Communist Party? And what are they planning? And speaking of what are they planning, as we're coming on the air tonight, it is breaking with the New York Post and other places. Another Chinese scientist from Wuhan charged with smuggling illegal biological material into the U.S., this time coming into the Detroit Metropolitan Airport on Sunday. Wait a minute. Isn't this like the second time in a week someone's tried to bring in a biological weapon? The last one was a fungus that would damage our wheat crops. Now, folks, you can go, and I mentioned it on Worldview Tube's Washington Report tonight with Jim Paff. You guys know I've done full shows on the 1999 document, Unrestricted Warfare, put out by two Chinese communist colonels. Unrestricted Warfare. They talked about propaganda, how to demoralize the country, but they also talked a lot about bioweapons. What is China planning, folks? What are they planning? I hope you'll stay tuned tonight because they're planning a lot. But most Americans will not see past the headlines crafted by the mainstream corporate media. This isn't about ICE. It's not about illegal immigration. It's ultimately about creating chaos in America, to divide America, to create lawlessness in America, to cause Americans to not trust their leaders or to trust good government, not bad government, but to not trust good government. It's to undermine people like President Trump from doing what he's trying to do, which is secure the nation, get the illegals out of here, the illegal invaders. It's to try to stop another major terrorist attack. But could these riots, my friends, listen carefully, could these riots be used as cover to prepare for a massive terrorist attack? I'll explain more tonight with Trevor Loudon. But here's what I need you to do right now. I need you to tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. Pick up the phone. Send out a text to everybody in your, or at least 5 people right now on your phone and say, you should turn on worldviewtube.com right now. Go to worldviewtube.com right now because Brannon is about to have a historian on who's an expert on communism. And these two guys are about to explain what's really going on and the process and the steps, the process and the detailed steps for a revolution in America. You're not going to hear this anywhere else tonight, folks. And we're going to be bringing out some manuals that we've covered back in 2020. 5 years ago, we covered this manual. But it bears repeating because it makes more sense tonight than it did even 5 years ago. So tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, True Social. Let everybody know. Tune in right now, worldviewtube.com. Now, look at this. This is in LA. It's still going on tonight, folks. Look at that. I'm not going to bring up the audio because I have no idea what's going on and I don't want the swearing. Do I need to push the button? Here we go. Look at that. Oh, wait a minute. Did you see a kafia in there? Oh, yes, a kafia. The Islamic kafias. Oh, yeah, this is the red-green axis we've been warning you guys about for so many years. Yep. It's still going on. Look at some of these young kids, by the way. Where do you think they got radicalized? Where do you think they got radicalized? Oh, we're going to get into that tonight. I guess this is also LA tonight. Brand new footage tonight. See, it's 2 hours earlier there. I was watching this kind of late last night and the sun was still up. I was like, it's dark here, but look at that. They still got sunshine out there. This is in LA. And by the way, we're hearing tonight this is spreading to other cities. This is spreading to other cities. And we're going to get into that tonight because apparently, and we're going to show you the map, apparently this is being set up for going all over the country on Saturday, June 14th. We're going to show you the map that this group has put out where these protests and riots are going to happen accordingly and reportedly. It's also spread to New York. This is footage from earlier in the evening. So it's from one end of the country to the other and in between, and it's picking up steam. But again, do you understand the worldview, the philosophy, the idea that's behind it? We're going to get into that tonight. This is supposedly outside of an ICE facility in Los Angeles. I won't bring up the audio because, again, I don't know what's being said, and I certainly don't want a lot of swearing. Looks like California National Guard. Guys, you notice all the Mexican flags, the Hamas Palestinian flags. You see a few American flags, but there's your Mexican flag. A couple of them right there. Now it's your Mexican-American flag combined. All right. I do want to ask you guys to do this, will you? As you guys come back to me. I want to ask you guys tonight to pray for this young man right here. He captured the heart of the nation, didn't he? DJ, Daniel? And we're being told tonight that he is in intensive care. So he had surgery. It's what we're being reported. He had surgery on Saturday morning. So people pray for DJ. I think a lot of you know exactly who this young man is and indeed captured the heart of a lot of us watching the State of the Union address and then watching him collect these badges around the country. Pray for DJ tonight, won't you? All right, folks. Again, we're going to go to probably a good hour, maybe an hour and a half with Trevor Loudon. We're going to blow your mind with lots of documentation and history. And when we get done tonight, you will fully understand what's happening. You'll understand the philosophies, the ideas, the tactics, and you're going to understand what to do. We're not going to just tell you what's happening. We're going to tell you how you should respond to what's happening. Because largely, folks, this is a worldview war. It's a battle for hearts and minds. We're going to bring reason and logic and context and help you and be empowered. I don't care if you're 14 years old or if you're 114 years old. You can be involved by doing a few things, and one of them is spreading truth, telling people what's really going on, what this is really about. Because it is a battle for hearts and minds, to cut through the propaganda and the lies. So most networks, if we're going to go an hour, hour and a half with Trevor, they'd have to stop and take a bunch of commercial breaks. Not us tonight. We're not going to do that. We have too many important things to do. So here's what I'm asking you right now. Will you go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors? You know all the great products. You know the Gatatana? I use it every day. I drink it every day. Half a scoop goes onto Dolly's food every day, my beloved studio lab, Dolly. 1 scoop's equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. You know the man that was growing this for his shellfish, got a terminal diagnosis. He thought, what do I got to lose? And he started eating it, the paste of the phytoplankton that he was raising for the shellfish. His daughter's like, what are you doing? This is not necessarily for humans. He's like, what do I got to lose? I got a terminal condition. We've played the video of his daughter talking about it. And he goes to the doctor to get some biopsies, 11 biopsies on his lungs. They come back benign. I'm not making claims. I'm just telling you his story. A terminal diagnosis became him retiring. And I'm told he retired to Hawaii. Retired to Hawaii. Lived another 10 years. Not making claims, I'm just telling you. Out of that was born Global Plankton Alliance. Yeah, you can give it to your pet. One lady told my wife today that her dog was having skin problems. No more skin problems after Gatatana. Also, her dog's teeth are a lot whiter. Yeah, my dog just turned a year, May 16th. Her teeth are still as white as the day I brought her home as a puppy because this phytoplankton seems to take that bacteria off the teeth. A lot of benefits, I think, for your pet. But again, not only do we give a half a scoop to a Dolly, but I take a full scoop. Melissa drinks a full scoop. Every day we take a full scoop of this phytoplankton that has 5 clinical trials behind it, loaded with protein, amino acids, trace minerals, all kinds of things. Check it out. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Now, you guys know I do the Bella Grace. This is the powerful elixir that I take every day. It has 80 clinical trials behind it. 80. This elixir with collagen, with the peptides cut short. Over the weekend, did I tell you this story, Logan? Over the weekend, I went into a certain store where I buy a lot of my vests. Occasionally, I'll buy a tie there, but generally, they don't have very good ties. I told the lady, you guys should hire me to pick out your ties. I said, your ties stink. I just, I'm not being rude, but I'm like, she laughed. She said, you're right. I said, your tie selection stinks. You need me to pick out your tie selection for you. You guys should hire me and I'll tell you what's in style because their tie collection stunk. My wife held up one. I'm like, that looks like the 1970s, Come on. Looks like Welcome Back, Kotter. Okay, just went over the heads of some people that tonight. They don't even have an idea what that sitcom was. But anyway, I buy my vest at this particular store. And this one lady knows who I am because I've been buying my vest there for a long time. So she sees me coming and she smiles real big. And she did a double take. She hadn't seen me in about 6 months, I guess. She looked at my wife. Now, she's talking like I'm not even there. She looks at my wife. She said, what did he do? Has he had Botox? He looks so much younger. What did he do? I said, what are you talking about? She said, your jawline, it's chiseled. I said, really? She said, yeah, you look like 10 years younger. My wife said, he's going to be telling this on television. Everything you say right now, he's going to repeat it on the air, sweetheart. She said, well, his hair growth. He came around the corner and he's got that hair back there kind of curling up. He didn't have that 6 months ago. And my wife's laughing. She said, you're going to use this on TV, aren't you? I said, you know I am. So I had to stand there and tell her all about Bella Grace. I said, lady, do you think I would do Botox? There's no way I would do Botox. Okay, number one, you're going to put something like that near my brain? No way. I don't have to do it because I have Bella Grace. And I explained to her the peptides are cut short so your body actually absorbs it. So it gets into your body. It's got the anti-inflammatory. I said, that's some of the chiseling you're seeing in the chin or the cheek line. That's the chiseling because the anti-inflammatory is the cat's claw. She's like, where do I get this stuff? I said, MelissaHousebG.com. And then I told her about the astaxanthin that crosses the brain-blood barrier, loaded with free, antioxidants that take on the free radicals. So there you go. She hadn't seen me in 6 months. She's like, what's going on? You look 10 years younger. You got a jawline that's chiseled more, and you have this hair. Yesterday it was flipping up in the back. It was humid here in the Mid-South. But anyway, she made my day. She made my day because she's like, you look 10 years younger. And I said, well, you are so sweet. So anyway, I had to buy something. So I bought a white dress shirt. And They did have one tie that I bought. But as nice as she was being, if I had found a few other things, I would have bought a few more items. But I only found 2 items I like. But there you go. I'm not kidding, folks. It was a great promo, I think, for Bella Grace. But I said to her, too, I also take something called Gatatana, which I think works really well with this. And I told her a little bit about Numi as well. I think these are the power of 3. So go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. You'll find all about Bella Grace. You'll find all about the Gatatana. And, of course, you can find out all about the Numi, the switch. I did tell her about the water, too. I mean, she wanted to know. I told her, I said, I think it's these 3 things. And I said, you know what else? My hair grows, because she kept commenting about my hair. And I said, I think some of it is that I'm not getting all these chemicals in my hair because I use a water purifier that filters all this out in the shower. So I'm not joking. People noticed she hadn't seen me in 6 months. So there you go. And my wife's right. She said, you're going to talk about this on television tomorrow night. I just know it. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I wish I had started the camera rolling and recorded what she was saying on my iPhone. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. So, folks, we are not going to take a bunch of breaks tonight. We're going to get right to it. So, finally, one last thing I'll say. If you appreciate what we're about to do for a good hour to an hour and a half with no commercial breaks, would you go to worldviewfoundation.com right now and make a contribution? Worldviewfoundation.com. We're pushing all this out for free tonight, and I pay the bandwidth bill. I paid a bill today for bandwidth that was over, just bandwidth for one bill, not counting both companies I use. One bill was over $5,000 today. Was it, Logan? Over $5,000. One bill. That doesn't count the other company. It's like $8,000 plus a month to push out free programming and the digital files being stored so you can grab them. How do I do that? We're a listener-supported network. Please, go to worldviewfoundation.com right now. I don't get USAID money. I don't get money from the government. I don't get money from foreign entities and foreign governments. A lot of the groups in the country are getting money from either the government or foreign groups, enemies, foreign and domestic. I get supported by Christians and patriots. Christians and patriots. And I'm about to serve up a good hour to hour and a half of major worldview, historical training and information to empower you with steps of what you need to do. And you better get your phone ready, by the way, to take a lot of pictures. You might want, don't you think that's a good idea, Logan? I think they ought to take pictures and screenshots of what I'm about to show you tonight with Trevor Loudon. We're going to cover a few things, and I'm going to bring out this chart that shows the steps. It's a chart put out by the military, the Army, in 2016, warning about how a revolution occurs in America. And you're going to want to take pictures, because when I start reading from it, you're going to go, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Yeah, you're going to want to share it with friends. And then when I put this online tomorrow morning, you're going to want to share it with friends at worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. But how do we do all this and educate people? Your support. You already heard a few of the products that I use that are great. But then you can just go to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. He's an expert on communism, Marxism, the CCP, China. There's a lot of shows that Mr. Loudon and I have done over the years. He's in my documentaries, Siege, Sabotage, all these documentaries, warning. In fact, Logan and I went back today and looked at many of the shows that I've done on my radio show, warning about guerrilla warfare tactics in America. We found a show going back to what, Logan, 2013? 2013, where we were warning about just that. Here's one from 2016, November 18th, 2016. And it's on La Raza. We'll get into La Raza tonight. We can go through other shows. Do you have that 2013 broadcast, Logan, where we were warning about guerrilla warfare? You'll find it. 2013, we did a lot of shows on that, and including we did a show on the Guerrilla Warfare Manual. In fact, here's a show from October 4th, 2017, and it was about groups that were distributing their 1969 Terror and Urban Guerrilla Warfare Manual, okay? So we've talked about this so many times. The question is, are Americans ready for what's coming? Are Americans aware of what's happening? There it is. July, what was that, Logan? 3rd? July 3rd, 2013, going up to point 2 there, if you would. Go on past, keep going. And there it is. No, down just a tad. There we go. Raise a little bigger. How did the communists infiltrate the civil rights movement? And then we go into all that related to guerrilla warfare. All right, there you go. Joining me now is Trevor Loudon. Trevor, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure, Brannon. Good to see you, sir.
You too, my friends. So the riots have broken out in L.A. now, and we'll see where it goes tonight. President Trump has had to call out the National Guard. But you and I have been warning that the Marxists, the Islamists, the red-green axis, the red being the Marxists, the green being the Islamists, they want to bring in chaos. It was the, wasn't it the terrorist who said the Jackal?
Carlos the
Jackal, that we can only bring down America with a Marxist Islamic coalition. And yet, what do we see in the streets? Logan, maybe you can find it. They're waving the Mexican flag, yes, but they're also waving the Palestinian Hamas flag, and they're wearing the keffiyehs, the Islamic terrorist neckerchiefs. Seems like the red-green axis is on the streets of L.A. Now, the question is, who's funding this? We'll get to that, but look what's coming this weekend. Here it is. In America, we don't do kings. They've defied our courts, deported Americans, disappeared people off the streets, attacked our civil rights, and slashed our services. No corruption has gone too far. No thrones, no crowns, no kings. Now, on June 14th, it says, we rise up. Find an event near you on the map below for a special note on Washington, D.C. Whoa, what's the special note on Washington, D.C.? Woo! On June 14th, Flag Day, Donald Trump wants tanks in the streets and made for TV display of dominance for his birthday. A spectacle meant to look like strength, but real power isn't staged in Washington. It rises up everywhere else. Okay? I would be shocked. Wow. For participants in D.C. area, we encourage you to join us in Philadelphia. Okay. I would doubt they want to go fool around in D.C. because that is federal areas. So you think they're going to skip Washington, D.C.?
Well, it looks like it by that communication, yes, and I can see how it makes sense. They want to go hit the soft areas first. Mm-hmm. You know, all these Democrat-controlled areas, these blue states, etc., California, Philadelphia, etc. So, yeah, but the point is, this is nationwide.
Well, look at this map. Are you telling me they really have people on the ground in every one of those cities coordinating some kind of rally?
Yeah, absolutely. They've had networks for a long time through Indivisible, Our Revolution. They've all got Democratic Socialists for America, Communist Party USA. They've Party for Socialism, Liberation. Every city, every significant town in America has a cadre of hardcore leftists, John Brown Gun Club, you name it, ready to go. So, yes, they can do it in all of those cities. No problem at all.
All right. So let's go back to L.A. What is going on in L.A. and who is driving this in Los Angeles?
Well, the original, and I released a tweet about this yesterday, laying out all the graphics. This was organized by the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is a pro-Chinese communist party. These are the same people that did the George Floyd riots. They're trying to do it all over again, but using, and here they go. Here's a picture. FRSO, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, build the movement against Trump, make the US ungovernable. These people are the backbone of this. They wrote in their paper, Fight Back, about starting the riots, organizing the riots, building the coalition for the riots, and they're running, the same group is running anti-ICE rallies all over the country, from Florida to Michigan to New York to Philadelphia, you name it, they're doing it. So these are the backbone, but they've been joined by the Communist Party USA, Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, and several Islamic groups. like the Palestinian youth movement, Students for Justice in Palestine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is exactly right. This is the red-green axis with the communist movement at its core, and critically, the pro-Chinese communist movement.
Now, are they paying these people? Because I don't know if it's legit. Have you seen the, I guess, the notices on social media, Craigslist, or other places? I've seen screenshots that they're willing to pay people for protesting for a week. Is this true?
Yeah, they've been doing this for a long time. They were doing this during the last election. Look, these people have got pretty, they've got money from the government, from the unions. They've got money from all sorts of foundations, the Soros operations, but not just Soros as well. So there's plenty of money for this kind of thing. And so, we shouldn't be surprised by this at all.
Now, this is the group Fight Back News. We talked about this on radio today. Being able to respond to ICE sightings is so important. We are not letting these pigs terrorize our barrios. Barrios? Those are like, that means like your hood?
Yeah, that's the neighborhood, the Hispanic neighborhood, yeah.
We will continue the pressure and continue kicking them out. They are not welcome here. Okay, who are these people? Who's this guy on the far side? You told me on radio today. Who's this guy?
Right there, the guy on the right there. That's Mark Montez. Just forgotten his first name. He's Carlos Montez. He's a leader of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. He has been a Maoist for more than 50 years, a pro-Chinese communist. He is a leader of the Community Service Organization, which was started originally by Saul Alinsky 50 years ago, but also a leader of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization.
Do you think he would come on our program?
I very much doubt it.
I don't understand. I'm trying to invite all these liberals, Marxists, globalists to come on my show. I'm getting my feelings hurt. None of them want to talk to me and tell me about their worldview. Why?
Well, because I think you know too much about their backgrounds, Brannon. If you were going to give them a softball interview and they were going to tell you all about how they're representing the poor illegal, the poor undocumented workers, and they're just standing up for people's rights against the tyrannical Trump government, if you let them do that, they would love it. But if you challenge them about their pro-Chinese, Marxist-Leninist beliefs, their propensity to violence, their instigations of the George Floyd riots of 2020, their regular demonstrations outside both the Democratic Party conventions and the Republican Party conventions every 4 years, and all the other things they've done, this is a hardcore pro-China communist group. They make no bones that they support Xi Jinping's China. And they make no bones that their job is to bring down the Trump administration in their own words by making the country ungovernable. And they've already shown us with the George Floyd riots that they can start riots in every major city in the country.
All right, now let's go to, before we get more into all this going on in LA, because I understand this is going on in other places today. Today, it started in other places, and tonight. So we'll do our best to keep track of it all. But
when George Floyd erupted, how long did it take for them to spread the rioting around the country?
Like 24, 48 hours?
Because it was all poised. They were ready. They were going to start riots. George Floyd was just the trigger.
Right.
They tried to start them when the jogger was killed in Atlanta. Didn't work. Tried to start them when Breonna Taylor was killed in a no-knock police raid in Louisville, Kentucky. Didn't quite work. George Floyd was their third attempt. If it hadn't been for George Floyd, it would have been Fred Smith in Tucson the week after, or Joe Jones in Seattle the week after that. They were going to do the riots. They know that every year about 1,100 people are killed by the cops. 20% of those are going to be black or Latino. They knew they were going to get an opportunity.
President Trump was asked today at the White House about civil war. Have you seen that clip?
No, I haven't.
Well, here it is. Here it is, my friend.
What do you make of the fact that he says you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. A civil war would happen if you left it to people like him. And I liked him. I always got along with him. Never had a problem with him. But he's grossly incompetent.
Now, he says civil war would happen if you let these guys go forward. Do these guys want civil war in America, do you think? Maybe not them personally, but their ideology, their worldview, some of the people that are around them in their circles want civil war?
Look, they want a revolution that gives them a complete monopoly of power forever. That's what they want. These are Marxist-Leninists who have lots of connections inside the Democratic Party. They control the unions, control a lot of the college campuses, and their goal is a revolution as in Cuba, as in Venezuela, or any other communist country.
Are you telling me that these people think they could use this violence to overthrow the government, take control of the military before the next election? Are they that insane?
What I think they're planning to do is create so much chaos to set the stage for anarchy and terrorist attacks, while you have people like China getting ready to declare war on us, to go to war through Taiwan, attack into the Pacific. You got Russia getting ready to attack the Baltics. You got Iran getting ready to attack Israel. So what they would be the fifth column in the United States. While we're trying to fight outside, they will be sabotaging things inside. And in fact, with that, we lose the war and their friends control us, and they think they'll be installed as the new leaders of the United States.
With that being said, Logan, can you find the clip from YouTube we played the other night of the general who's the commander of Edwards Air Force Base? It's toward maybe the 60% of the way into his speech. He talks about the day one when China goes after Taiwan, the first thing you're going to do is put our power grid down. Can you find any clips on that, please, Logan? All right, let's see if you can scan through that and find it. I'll look too while you're talking. What do you make of that? We played a 25-minute speech on Friday night. The general, who's a brigadier general, commander of Edwards Air Force Base in California, gave a 25-minute speech that included not only to his people, but leaders in the community around. Okay, I think he's giving me a time. Okay, all right. I think he may have found it. And he's warning community leaders, Trevor, that if we don't all come together and work together, we're going to be in big trouble because we got a problem coming. And he says that when China goes after Taiwan, which produces about 90% of our chips in Taiwan, then he says first they're going to do is shut the power down here. So we all need to be getting ready. He says, look, don't forget that when the power went down, when some tree lines hit some power lines in Ohio back in, 2003, 2004, he says, the power's only down a few hours. 30 people died. Can you imagine if it's a few weeks, few months?
Well, that's exactly right. Our enemies are on a war footing, both overseas and inside the country. They're all getting ready for war. But most Americans are still going to restaurants and still going to Walmart and thinking everything's just fine and dandy. Look, get prepared, get your networks ready, get food, get generators, get medicines if you need them. Be prepared to the point that you could survive 3 months with no electricity. That's what you should be.
3 months.
Yeah, well, look, hopefully it's not that long. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all. But look, we know that in an EMP attack, one nuclear bomb detonated in the upper atmosphere over America would shut down the grid for months. We know that. Now,
what about just a physical attack, Trevor? What about just a physical attack on our power grids? Or I should say our power substations, right? I've told the story here before.
I'm told that you'd have to shut down nine power stations across America to bring down the whole grid.
Yeah, hit the right 9 power substations, you bring the whole grid down. I'm not going to say where it is, but everybody in my community knows. But I had a elected...
You can bet the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians know. I can guarantee you that.
Sure they do. I talked to a man elected to local office here last year. And he said, hey, the power substation? And he mentioned a landmarker. And I said, oh, yeah, I know that power substation right there. He said, that power substation controls the entire town? I said, you mean that's the only one? There's not like one of 3? There's not like 3 of those? That's it? He said, that's it. I said, well, it's not guarded. It's got a flimsy little chain link fence around it. He's like, yep. And that's what David Pine and Peter Pry and David Tice, was that his name, Tice, has told us. I mean, look at this map. I mean, wasn't it during the Ferguson, Missouri riots, the FBI put out a bulletin saying, beware of these anarchists who might attack power substations and try to bring down the power grid? I remember that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And just by the way, Ferguson, Missouri was run by another pro-Chinese Communist Party, which is now called Liberation Road. Ferguson, Missouri was really a trial run for what they did with the Black Lives Matter. So yeah, they brought 10,000 people from out of state into Ferguson, Missouri for those riots. So that's the level of organization that we have on the hard left in the United States. And look, as the point I've made is, you know, in 2014, 2017, 2020, we had massive riots. We had big trouble. But the international tensions in those days were nowhere near what they are today. You know, with the Ukraine war, with what's happening in the Middle East, Pakistan, India, Rocket Boy acting up, China getting belligerent, you know, the international, you know, let alone what's happening inside America and what's happening in Latin America, you've got a very fraught international situation, and all of our enemies have large numbers of people already inside this country. And as I keep saying, they're not here to go to Vegas.
No, they're not.
They are here when the word comes to burn, you know, wreck bridges, attack military bases with drones or whatever, assassinate people, release pathogens, whatever they have to do. We've got to understand we are at war right now with China and Iran, and to a degree with Russia. And they all have people inside the country, and they're just waiting for the time. And these riots in LA are providing the cover for what these people need to do.
Wait a minute. The riots are providing the cover for what these people need to do. So if you were to be trained military CCP, military age males that we have talked about, we've shown videos of what looks to be military age males from the CCP coming to the U.S. We've shown those and talked about them with Todd Bensman, who's now the senior advisor, by the way, to Tom Homan. We've talked about it with Michael Yon. We've talked about it with Gordon Chang and many others. If those indeed are military trained, military age males, CCPs here in the U.S., the riots give them cover to do what they need to do. My question would be, Mr. Loudon, whether we're talking Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Marxists, the Islamists, if you have riots and your police are very distracted, would that not, and I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but would this not be the opportunity to move in a biological weapon or massive small nuclear devices like the nuclear suitcases that Congressman Dan Burton and Kurt Weldon were warning about in the early 2000s, or bring in a, quote, dirty bomb? Although the dirty bomb may not kill a lot of people, the psychological impact, would this not be the kind of chaos you would use to bring in for the cover to then set the stage for something like that? Is that what I just heard you say?
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you've got riots all over the country, you know, minor terrorist attacks, you got the police stretched, everybody's going everywhere. And then these trained saboteurs from other countries start doing maybe small stuff, maybe release a dirty bomb, pathogen. The cops, where are you going to look? You know, you're already dealing with all these other things. You don't know if these are domestic terrorists doing this. You don't know if they're Iranians or Chinese or North Koreans. Can you imagine if we're you know, the European war heats up, the Middle Eastern war heats up, China goes into the Pacific, and then we've got chaos in America. How the heck are we going to handle that?
Yeah, exactly right. And your police aren't showing up. Logan, did we find that clip? This is the Brigadier General, commander of Edwards Air Force Base on May 7th. Watch this.
Chinese malware on all the SCADA systems that control electric power communications. The first indication that we have that the invasion of Taiwan has started is probably that the lights go out and that the cellular network doesn't work anymore. If it did work and you could still log into your bank account, you might not actually see anything because all the records might be scrambled. It might be confusing. There's a way to actually attack us without attacking us. Next slide. And so just as an indication, it wouldn't be that easy. So if you remember that blackout in 2003 that affected the entire Northeast, and so we're talking about the Eastern Interconnect, there's 3 different regions. When you put current down wires, they tend to sag. So during the summertime when the wind's not blowing, the electrical wires can sag. And if it turns out that there's trees there and they sag into a tree, you can actually short out a line. So that actually happened in Ohio. This little line going up to Cleveland sagged into the line, so that one came off, was kicked offline because it shorted out. Not a big deal, pretty resilient, right? But then the next one sagged because it was carrying more current. It kicked offline, so now more current is flowing this way. That one sagged, that one sagged. Now all of this power is flowing just from there. That actually sets off a chain reaction of reactive power being out of sync with the rest of the grid and leads to a rapid domino effect of the entire grid going down. It's fairly balanced, finely balanced all the time. And if you disrupt it, the entire system can collapse. And that's exactly what happened. Ultimately, 55 million people lost power. 100 people died during this from the power loss, and it was only for a couple hours. Think about if the electrical grid goes down for 6 months, because that could happen. Now, the system's not as fragile as it was in 2003, but that was a tree. That was just a natural, warm summer day. Everybody turned their air conditioners on. The line's going. Now, we don't have a lot of trees around here, but there is Chinese malware in the SCADA systems on our grid. They are in all of our critical infrastructure. Next slide. So, China has more cyber operators than the rest of the world combined. There was an article in The Economist last week, Tracking the Hacking, is what it's titled, that overviews all of the operations that China's done everywhere that they are, and by a person for person. In fact, earlier, it was actually at the start of March, we're now in April, but we just indicted 12 named People's Liberation Army cyber operators. We indicted them in federal court. Now, of course, they're living in China, so unless they ever come here, we're probably never actually going to. But we've identified them. Go ahead and build for me. So this is a list since 2024 of all the cyber attacks, named cyber attacks, known cyber attacks from China, originating from China.
All right, let's hold right there.
The designation that we use.
I mean, he's got a lot of great stuff. I thought he said 30 people died. 100 people died when the power went down in New York in the Northeast there in summer of 2003, and I remember it well. When it went down, didn't go down very long, and 100 people died. Imagine, as you said, if it went down for weeks or months. What do you make of that, Commander, warning about this? This was May 7th. By the way, this was before we had the drone attack coming from Ukraine onto the plains of Russia. So what if China says, hey, we could do some drone attacks on the United States and some of their planes, or we could use a Club K cargo system that's $10 million that I've talked about for years, and in my documentary Siege or Sabotage, we could use those. I mean, there's so many things they could use. But what do you make of what this general's warning about May 7th?
Well, I think the military are well aware of the threats we're facing, but these messages are very unpopular for politicians to carry. You know, nobody wants to hear this stuff. So these military guys are very, very frustrated, and it's starting to break through now because the threats are so darn critical. And we saw exactly, as you said, what the Ukrainians did with a few $1,000s worth of drones. Well, we've got planes stacked up in airports all over America, submarines in port, ships in port, critical infrastructure. How many thousands of Chinese containers come into this country every single day? How do you know? We already know they've been smuggling AK-47s into the country for gangs. We know they've been smuggling fentanyl. Why can't they smuggle a few drones in to attack critical infrastructure at the right time? Of course they can. Of course they're planning to. Of course they will. And the only thing that's going to stop them is if the US goes on to a threat basically mobilizes the whole security apparatus of the country to guard against China, and we start sending the Chinese nationals home, start arresting Chinese spies, we know who they are, and start taking a hard line with China, a total decoupling from China. That's the only thing that's going to save us here.
Look at what
now we're coming to the stage where it's going kinetic now.
Look at what
the beginnings of the kinetic stage.
The beginnings of the kinetic stage. Look at what ABC 7 in LA said the other night.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into.
Okay, that's what it is. A bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. Hang on. Here we go. Let's play it again, if it'll play. A bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. This is the dingalings in the media.
There in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Wow, it's just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. That's all it is, Trevor. What are you talking about? CCP and revolution and intifada. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so we shouldn't escalate, right? We're under attack, and the best way to handle it is to have a very light hand. Look, anybody who's dealt with criminals and civil unrest over any period of time knows that you've got to get in there very vigorously and very aggressively and sort it out very quickly. You don't let it fester, just like you don't let kids throw tantrums and do nothing about it. Mm-hmm. So, look, I'm glad that President Trump is sending the National Guard in there. I'm glad he's potentially mobilizing Marines. But what we have to see is the vigor that was shown against those people who walked into the Capitol building in January the 6th. The vigor the FBI showed in tracking those people down for years, that kind of vigor has to be applied to these very serious rioters and those who are directing them. Like when George Floyd was going on, I could have given the FBI a list of 100 leading Marxists in the country who are organizing these riots. And if they'd arrested those people or gone after those people, it would have shut it all down. But I don't think the FBI had any willingness to confront the communists or even knowledge of who they were. So unless we get that, the FBI hasn't been allowed to go after communists for 30 years now, since the Church reports in the 70s. They have no knowledge of who these people are. So when George Floyd riots erupted, the FBI was flat-footed because they didn't know who these people were. They're going around arresting people for throwing bricks, but they didn't arrest people, the people who were organizing this on a nationwide basis. I would have thought that would have been the priority.
You would think. That makes too much common sense, Trevor. Here is a report, ABC News. Again, I think this is out of L.A. Listen here.
With the fact that authorities are telling, U.S. officials are telling our team at the Pentagon, again, they confirmed 700 Marines. They're coming from 29 Palms in California. They've been ordered to assist in Los Angeles. They think they're going to be here in the next 24 hours. What's your assessment of that move there?
That's a little surprising for me. I didn't see that coming, but we talked about it, but I didn't think it would happen. So it's a little surprising that it has. Mr. Higgs has said it, and now they're deploying. Generally speaking, in these type of situations, we just use the National Guard. And I'll tell you, Kana, we've used them time and time again in New York and around the country. They've used them as well. They come in and they stabilize. So if you have government property or government operations going on, they'll stabilize that by standing guard. So that's what I think the Marines will do. That's what the National Guard is doing. I don't think it'll go any further than that. And here's an issue here going forward into the evening. Right now they're in the afternoon there, but going forward in the evening, you have a police chief who said he was overwhelmed. He needs help. Hopefully he's getting that. You also have a federal officers assaulted on Saturday, which really started the ratchet this thing, as well as prosecutors. I see something going on. It's not over yet. Hopefully this will end peaceably, and tonight will be a different story than it was last night, with all the property damage, the back and forth against the police. Two different strategies going forward. But now with this extra deployment here, I think they're just going to solidify government buildings. Is my guess now.
Which is what we've heard the National Guard troops would do as well to really protect those federal buildings. But you touched on a couple of things here.
Okay, so apparently the National Guard will have bullets, Trevor, but they're only going to be allowed to use them in cases of self-defense. Tensions are escalating in Los Angeles after protesters, blah, 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 blah. Let's go on down here. I saw somewhere we talked about that. Those guys having, there we go. National Guard is armed, but no bullets in the chamber. And it goes on to state that these Marines and Guard personnel aren't using rubber bullets or pepper spray either, but they will carry ammunition as part of their uniforms. It can be used in the rare case of self-defense, the officials said. I don't know who on God's green earth thought it was smart to telegraph to everybody they don't have rounds in the chamber.
Look, you showed me clips earlier today, Brannon, of people throwing rocks off overpasses onto cars below. Mm-hmm. Heavy rocks onto police. Now, you know, ordinarily you'd think that would warrant a jail term of 10 years. You know, that's attempted murder right there. Or negligent homicide at the very least. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing that kind of thing, why are these people not being arrested? Why are they not being prosecuted and put in jail? If you did that to 1,000 people doing this kind of thing, I think it would become very unpopular to throw rocks at cops. Mm-hmm. Look, you could find out who these people are. If the FBI can find out people who walked into the
Capitol on January 6th, they could ping their cell phones and know who's right there on that bridge.
Yeah, taking selfies, you can identify the people doing this. And you can sure as heck identify the people who are organizing this. Look, they put it on Facebook. Freedom Road Socialist Organization actually claimed credit for organizing these riots. They claimed credit for it. It is not hard to find.
How long?
I can find it. The FBI can find it.
Logan, can you show
Patel.
Can you show the screenshot, Logan, of, what was it, Muslim Retribution? Was that the group? Can you show that screenshot? I guess starting Friday, was it Friday? And throughout the weekend, somebody posting as Muslim Retribution, posting on our Facebook page saying the only good conservative is a dead conservative. Do you think this is going to spill over into actually targeting? We just saw a candidate running for office in Colombia, I think, assassinated by a 15-year-old kid. There we go. The Muslim Retribution, the only good conservative is a dead conservative. And whoever that is has posted that a few times over the weekend. So, big deal, whatever. We've gotten plenty of death threats in our time. But do you think the violence globally, as we just saw, as I said, it looks like a guy running on the right, on the conservative right in Colombia was shot in the head by a 15-year-old over the weekend. Do you think we're going to see an increase in political assassinations and targeting of conservatives, and particularly people that are up and outspoken about the Islamists and the Marxists and the red-green axis and all these people?
Look, the Russians are targeting people right through Europe right now. They have squads out there tracking down people. That's getting ready to blow up. Yes, I believe we're going to see I said at the beginning of this summer, we're going to see terrorist attacks, and I think we'll see targeted assassinations as well of probably media people, conservative activists, that kind of thing. And as we always say, Brannon, we hope we're wrong, but we predicted what we're seeing now, did we not?
Yeah. Starting back in 2013, we can show the screenshots. We've already done it. Warning the country about guerrilla warfare. And because we know what they're saying in their own papers. We know the 1969 guerrilla warfare manual they're circulating online. So it's not like we have to wonder, hey, what are they up to? We watch what they're up to and what they're saying and what they're calling for. Burn down the American plantation, all these kind of slogans. Here's NBC News. Now I want to make sure everyone understands. This is from January of 2024. January 2024, NBC News. Fears grows that Trump will use the military in dictatorial ways if he returns to the White House. They're trying to make a self-fulfilling prophecy, are they not, again, to get ready for the midterms and whatever else they want to use this agenda for?
Well, exactly. See, they want to push the violence so far that Trump has to react. And then, of course, he's a fascist and a Nazi, which propels the narrative further. They've been setting up this narrative for a long, long time. Just like they ran the Christian nationalist narrative, they ran the January the 6th narrative, they ran the Black Lives Matter narrative. These narratives are worked out and coordinated. Why has Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut who has deep communist connections, and Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, who is a communist, and Kamala Harris, who also has deep communist connections, all come out publicly saying Trump's to blame for this. This is Trump instigating this. This is his problem. This is setting the stage for further violence and then impeachment as soon as they
yes, exactly. Now I want to go to some historical quotes here that you and I have covered over the years. But here's Chris Murphy. You mentioned him. Here he is.
I mean, my first message is to keep it peaceful. I mean, obviously, this is a moment where we have to be on the streets all over the country to protest what's happening to our immigrant community, but more broadly to protest what's happening to our democracy. This is the most corrupt administration in the history of the country, and we are going to rise to this moment by being out there on the streets. But ultimately, I think the country sees what Donald Trump is trying to do here. He's looking for a fight. There's nothing in what he is doing that is about peace or about restoring order. He's taking a protest that is relatively isolated. People in Los Angeles over the weekend would tell you that 99% of them went about their day, and it was pretty normal because this is not an invasion that has taken over the entire city. And he's trying to turn a protest that is pretty small into something that involves an even bigger confrontation so that he might actually be able to invoke the Insurrection Act. That would be a defining story of the week if he were to do it. And I just don't think, I think we have to make sure that we understand to not take him at his word. He's looking for a fight. He's not trying to calm tensions.
Really? I mean, these people, they just have no shame, do they?
No, look, it's revolutionary truth, Truth to us is actually what happens, what is real. Truth to a leftist is whatever serves the revolution. That man is lying through his teeth. Well, maybe he believes it because he probably believes his own stuff. But this is a guy who's deeply in bed with the Connecticut Communist Party and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is which is linked to Hamas, a well-known terrorist group, trying to tell us that President Trump is causing this problem. His people, radical leftists and Islamists are rioting on the streets of a city. And President Trump has shown a lot of restraint so far. Why are you telegraphing that you've got no bullets in your guns? Why weren't there mass arrests of many of these culprits? That's hardly heavy-handed policing, in my opinion. If there was any criticism of the police response, that it was too darn light. But that doesn't matter. The narrative is they're setting up the narrative to impeach Trump, that he's a dictator, he's out of control, he provokes violence, when the exact opposite is the truth. But when is the left? That's what distinguishes the left. Their idea of reality is 100% opposed to what is real. So that's how you know that Chris Murphy is a leftist, because his views are so distorted and diametrically opposed to what is correct.
You remember when we went through this a few years ago, Trevor? Here it is, the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, put out by the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, 2016. You and I have done whole shows on this, And we went through this manual. And the manual includes this little chart. Look at the side here. It says right here on the side, preparation of revolutionary cadres and of masses for revolution. Now let's go down here, read it real quick. At the base, dissatisfaction with political, economic, social administration and or conditions, national aspiration, independence, or desire for ideological and other changes. In other words, you demoralize people. Demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and the new norm. Make people dissatisfied with their country. Make them feel like there's economic injustice, that there's a problem with social administration. And you want an ideological change. Okay, next one. Creation of atmosphere of wider discontent through propaganda, lies, political and psychological effort, discrediting government, police, military, and authorities. Can we stop right there? Because, Trevor, this is what the military, the army said would be the unconventional warfare, and this is what they're doing right now. They're discrediting the government, which isn't hard to do, by the way, but they're discrediting government, which now is trying to do its job, which is reward. I can criticize government all day long, state and federal, and most local, but at this moment right now, this administration is trying to stabilize the country, at least this chaos in LA, get illegals out of here, MS-13 gangs, Tron de Aragua, CCP people, all these illegal invaders, military-age males, trying to clean the country up, secure our country so we know who's here, what are they here for, what's their intention, what do they have, what do they not have. And yet what's happening? Well, we're going to discredit the government. We're going to discredit the police. We're going to discredit the military and all authorities. Attack all authorities. Trevor?
Yeah, and it's done in the name of our immigrant community. Well, no, it's not a community. It's a bunch of illegal people who have entered the country. It's just like there's a difference between somebody who comes to your door with a bottle of wine and a bowl of pasta to come in for the evening and somebody who breaks in your back door and raids your fridge. There's a difference. This is not an immigrant community. These are illegal aliens who have illegally come into the country using your resources and harboring amongst their ranks many out-and-out criminals and terrorists. And yes, it is very appropriate for the government to deal with this problem. In fact, you'd be absolutely negligent as a government not to deal with this problem. And here's Chris Murphy, the friend of the Communist Party of Connecticut, criticizing the president and saying he's responsible for this. Well, could there be a clearer exhibition of revolutionary truth than what he just gave us?
Let's look at the third step. Assassination. Well, they already tried that on President Trump twice. Forming favorable public opinion, advocating national cause, creation of distrust of established institutions. Well, isn't that what we're hearing now? Violence? Yeah. Being justified in the name of, well, we don't like the
Well, look at the Mangione case. There are elements out there trying to make that man a hero for murdering a health executive on the street. This guy is somebody to be admired. There's been serious attempts to make the man who murdered that beautiful young couple in Washington, D.C. at the Israeli embassy, to make him some kind of hero. There are elements out there trying to do that.
To glorify and justify assassinations. Next level.
That's right, because these people are fascists, you see, so it's okay to kill fascists. That's their logic.
That's their logic. We heard that a lot in press conferences yesterday in L.A. I was watching. Increased agitation, unrest, and dissatisfaction, infiltration of administration. Hello, Karen Bass. Mm-hmm. Hello, Chris Murphy, U.S. Senate. Hello, Kamala Harris. Hello, Joe Biden, right? And hello, AOC. Hello, Ilhan Omar. Hello, Rashida Tlaib. I mean, could we keep going? Then you infiltrate the police and the military and national organizations. And now that's what we see in many of our police departments. They let these people run crazy and they do nothing. They stand down because their police have been infiltrated, or at least the government overseeing them have been infiltrated, and they set the climate to allow this. Hey, they're just a bunch of people enjoying watching cars burn. We better not send the police in because that'll just agitate the situation.
Yeah, well, it's all, this is, the key thing you're pointing out, Brannon, is people see this and they think this is just stupid people doing stupid stuff. But when you lay it out from an army manual of how a revolution is carried out and the specific steps. Now, the communists have done this 50 times around the world. They study this. They have institutions studying this and how you do it. Lenin's School of Higher Learning in Moscow, the Patrice Lumumba School, they actually study this at academic level. They've done this many times. They've never done it to this scale in the world's most powerful country. But it was coming.
Well, you and I have done this show back in 2020, and we went through this very graphic back in 2020. We've given the country 5 years to prepare. And you know what? A lot of people got prepared. And in fact, a lot of people bought supplies from us at worldviewstore.com. They bought freeze-dried food. They bought, medicine kits. They bought the ability to make a small fire with our solo stove so they got the pots, they could boil water. People bought a lot of stuff. But what I saw is when President Trump got elected, a lot of people went back to sleep. And I'm like, are you kidding me? When President Trump got elected, I didn't stop prepping. I continued my prepping because China and these people want to make more trouble while Trump is in the White House, right? So I thought, no matter who won, I knew we needed to keep making sure we're ready. But I see a lot of people have gone back to sleep. And yet here we were 5 years ago going through this same document. Now maybe people are going, wait a minute, every step they're talking about, we're seeing happen. And we're seeing it happen in other countries, by the way. Notice it's a global ideology of Marxism and Islam. It's not unique just to us. They're doing this all over the world in Western nations to bring down Western societies, right? Look at the next one. Infiltration of foreign agents and agitators. Hello. Now, we did this first time in 2020. And yet, what do we have? Now the borders were wide open for 4 years under Biden. Infiltration of foreign agents and agitators and foreign propaganda material, money, weapons, and equipment. Wait a minute, weren't you just talking about that a while ago with the 1% of the cargo cars that come to the country that actually get scanned? And you were just talking about that very thing right there. Step number, was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Step number 5.
Yeah, well, look, the United States is this hugely powerful country, but it's wide open. You know, look, the Ukrainians just attacked the Russians with drones deep inside their country. Now, Russia is a lot harder to get around. It's a lot more controlled and surveilled country than America is. And the Russians, you know, we don't have 100,000 Americans running around Russia getting ready, or China getting ready to attack them. But they can just bring people here all the time. They don't get surveilled. They can live right next to a military base. They can work as janitors and military offices or civic buildings. You know, they can drive Uber Eats or whatever they want to do and surveil buildings. Nobody's going to stop you here. So our biggest vulnerability is our total lack of security preparedness. Because we think we're too big and powerful to be attacked, so we don't take precautions. Well, the Russians, who have a pretty heavy security state, just got made big fools of. Well, how big of fools could we be made with 100,000 foreign agents here in a completely open society with the ability to do whatever they damn well want?
Yep. And there it is in the Army manual from 2016. All right, next level. Recruitment of like-minded individuals and others, indoctrination and use of these organizational purposes. Well, isn't that what's going on now? They're using these riots and all of these causes of theirs to recruit like-minded individuals. And then they're also using it for indoctrination for their organizational purposes. That's going on right now.
Well, that's what the Red Green Axis has been doing since October the 7th on all our campuses, you know, starting riots, bringing people into their radical groups, training people up. This is how the Weather Underground was spawned in the 70s, the same way. And they went on to blow buildings up and commit all sorts of crimes. Well, you know, the scale is a lot bigger today than it was then.
Yep.
You know, back then it was just a small number of ultra radical kids. Well, today a lot of college kids in this country are socialists, and a few of those socialists are communists, and some of those are potential terrorists. And it's a lot bigger proportion of the population than it was back in the 1970s.
Penetration into professional, social, and political organizations and into all parts of society. So you get the revolutionaries into professional situations.
Churches.
Media,
churches, legal bodies, what we got so many communists in our circuit and our judiciary now, in law enforcement, and you name it, any professional body can think, in the medical profession.
the media,
We've seen that in the media 100%.
Spreading subversive organizations into all sectors of life in a country and region. Well, we just saw the map. We saw the map for this weekend. We saw the map for this weekend for June 14th. So do you think that they have accomplished that goal there, spreading subversive organizations in all sectors of life in a country all over the nation? Yeah, they did that one. Establishment of formalized resistance elements, appeal to extraterritorial support infrastructure. Appeal to extraterritorial support infrastructure. What do you think that means?
That means you get the Cubans, you get the Cubans, the Venezuelans, who already are involved in our country now. You get these radical groups who go to China, go to Russia, go to Cuba, and get training from them and get support from them, and hook up with their networks here. Like, you got a whole bunch of embassies here, the Chinese embassy, Venezuelan embassy, Cuban interest section. These organizations all liaise with radicals here. Mm-hmm. All of them do. And they give them direction, they give them guidance. So these are foreign enemy outposts on our country who are working with internal enemies on behalf of external enemies.
Expansion of and coordination among resistance networks. Well, isn't that what that is right there, Trevor?
Yep.
For June 14th?
Yep.
Intensification of propaganda, increase in disaffection, psychological preparation for a revolt. Well, isn't that, again, what many of these people in the media are doing? Can I give you a phrase, Trevor? You'll know it because we've talked about it so many times. Pressure from above, pressure from below. Pressure from above, pressure from below. You have the people in government, you have people in the Senate, the House of Representatives, governors, mayors, police chiefs, making stupid statements. Oh, they just want freedom. Oh, you can't bring in the police. You're just escalating the situation. You can't be a tyrant and a dictator. He's a wannabe dictator and tyrant. We can't fall into his trap. Pressure from above. And then the pressure from below is at the street level. And you squeeze the middle class in the middle, right? Who now, if this breaks out across the country, will be sitting in their houses, rightfully so, scared to death, thinking, what has happened to my country? I can't go to the mall. I can't go to the store. I'm afraid to go out. I want to go back to normal. And the middle class is being squeezed by the Marxists and the Islamists at the top and the bottom until the middle class cry out to the elected officials to do something. Throw them a bone. Throw these people a bone and make them happy so we can go back to normal. And the middle class agrees to give up some of their liberty and freedom, and they acquiesce to these people, and it all lives to fight another day.
Yeah, for peace. Look, when they talk about that Trump is a dictator, Trump is a fascist, you know, it is our moral duty to fight back against fascists and dictators. So they're creating the moral paradigm that it's not just permissible to rebel against the government led by President Trump. It is your moral obligation to do so. A decent person would do this or cooperate with those who are. So you're setting the moral climate for revolution.
That psychological preparation for revolt.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
And you're seeing it on the TV screens and with these comments by these politicians is setting that psychological preparation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Logan, is there any other TV show out here tonight doing what we're doing? No. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, well, you're making good points, Brannon. We are very unprepared for what's coming because we haven't generally been warned. You've been warning people. I've been trying to the best of my ability. You've got a big platform there, but most of the media has been either cowardly or willfully ignorant. and they will not be thanked when the revolution really breaks out. Well, why weren't we warned? Why didn't people tell us this was coming? Well, we're trying to do our best right now, Brannon. You know, I know that a lot of people watch your show. I hope they will start preparing, but I hope they will also start keeping an eye out. If they see suspicious things happening around a power plant, they see a suspicious character seem to be casing out a bridge or something, get their number plate, inform the police. Terrorist incidents have been stopped by public, just public vigilance. The murderer, the murderer of the health executive was caught by a burger flipper in Altoona, Pennsylvania. In World War II, the British caught every single Nazi spy parachuted into Britain, every single one. And most of it was caught by public reports. One spy was caught because he dropped a German chocolate wrapper in a railway station, and somebody saw it, picked it up, and said, why has this guy got a German chocolate wrapper? And they arrested him, and so we have to understand we're in a war situation, whether we fully understand it or not, and should have the vigilance and the preparation commensurate with that.
Yep.
That's what we need to do on a personal and family level, and be prepared for some rough times. And but I don't say that to scare people. I say because by confronting this evil and being prepared for it and handling it, that is the way back to a free America.
But everybody's telling us that those riots, that's about immigration. That's about ICE. That's because President Trump sent in the National Guard. No, this is because this is being organized, it has been planned for months, and it's being organized by enemies, foreign and domestic. That's my theological, historical, national security opinion.
100% right. 100% right. As Black Lives Matter wasn't spontaneous, it was planned. The LA riots, as soon as the videos come out of that guy being beaten up, I'm not saying that was planned, but the communists got their wheels turning as soon as they saw that. How can we turn this into something?
Go to the next one. Overt and covert pressures against government, strikes, riots, and disorders. Well, you're seeing that right now.
Yeah, we
Pressure against government, strikes, riots, and disorders.
And the left is already planning for a general strike in a couple of years' time. There's a conscious plan for a general strike across America.
Which would mean what?
Well, every union member in the country going on strike across the whole country all at once.
Sabotage and terror to demonstrate weakness of government. Well, isn't that what's going on right now? Did the government look strong in LA last night when those cops were hiding under that bridge? I'm not blaming them for being under there. They were smart. I kept watching it live going, I sure hope those guys don't get cracked in the head. Some guy was out there trying to put out the fire of one of the cop cars burning. And I kept thinking to myself, buddy, it doesn't matter. That car is totaled. Don't risk getting hit in the head with a brick to put out a fire on a cop car that's already totaled. And so I'm not criticizing them, but they should take care of their personal safety so they can go home at night. But it does make the government look weak, right? That's
the point. So they want to intimidate the government from taking strong, decisive action. Therefore, the government looks weak, and that plays into the hands of the revolutionaries and encourages more revolution. So when these guys blame Trump and they talk about heavy-handedness and Trump's a fascist, the idea is to try and make the Republicans put pressure on Trump to back off. Appease this, let it just play itself out, and that just plays into the hands of the revolutionaries. Look, when you got a naughty child, you give them a little bit of a spanking, don't you?
Yep.
And then the object is that they won't do it again. You know that if you're soft on discipline, you're going to have discipline problems forever. Increased
underground activities to demonstrate strength of revolutionary organization. Okay, increased underground activities to demonstrate strength of revolutionary organizations. Well, don't you think that there is some underground activities going on in order to do that? And isn't that, and the fact that this website NoKings.org puts that up. Isn't that in order to show the strength of their numbers, or at least isn't that what they're attempting to do? I think it is.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But what I think we're going to start to see is more terrorist attacks, and the cops will have a lot of trouble finding these people. And people are going, well, why can't the government find these people? Why can't the government sort this out? They found the January 6 guys, no problem. Why can't they find these guys who assassinated that mayor? Why can't they find the guys who poisoned that reservoir? You know, and so it creates an instability, and it creates a fear, and it creates a lack of confidence in the government, all of which carries the revolutionary narrative further on.
Here's the next one. Intense sapping of morale of government, administration, police, and military. Okay? Intense sapping of morale of government, administration, police, and military. How many police in LA tonight you think are feeling very bolstered? Or how many do you think are feeling very embarrassed and that we should have been able to do our job? But I bet you they were told things, stand down, don't do this, don't do that. How long before people in the military who are, while they're letting out in the press, oh, don't worry, they don't have any rounds chambered. How long before those guys feel demoralized and decide, I'm not going to be a police officer, I'm quit?
Yeah, well, this was happening for, under Obama. It was happening under Biden. The police weren't backed up. Good guys were leaving the police. They were having trouble recruiting, so they're bringing gangbangers into the police. And so that lowers the standard, creates more bad incidents.
Now the middle class doesn't trust the police. Now the built-in normal supporter of the police, the middle class Americans, now they don't trust the police because the police have gone out and started hiring gangbangers and people that should never be police officers to be police officers. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right, which again is part of the revolutionary process.
Now all of a sudden, not only do the revolutionaries not like the police or trust them, now your average law-abiding citizen is skeptical of them. So mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. Loss of confidence, so that they don't cooperate with the police. They don't hand in tips to the police that they might know about, and so policing gets less effective. Look, this is a scientific process, Brannon. This was very well done, that putting this all together like this. But this is known in every communist party. They know how to do this. They study this in Cuba. They studied in China. They studied in Russia. They go there for several year courses to study this kind of stuff.
Wow.
It's a scientific process. How do you bring down a great country? Lenin took over Russia with less than 1,000 Bolsheviks. And that was a country at the time of, 140 million people or something.
Woo! All right, so all of those stages brings us to the blue. That teal green, if you will, blue, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Negotiations with government representatives. Okay, so let's negotiate with these people and see how we can appease them and give them what it is they want to get them to quiet down and go back. So now you've got them negotiating. Then the next level is increased political violence, terror, and sabotage. So now after you start negotiating, you let a little more violence happen so that they'll listen to whatever your demands were. Maybe their demands were like, no, we're not doing that. Okay. And then they go back to increased political violence, terror, and sabotage. Now they're back to negotiating maybe. Now you have a shadow governance activities. Shadow governance activities. What would that be, you think?
Well, that's the Democratic Party, But you have, and then they're talking about, the Democrats are talking about having a shadow government, having a shadow cabinet, because this is an alternative center of power that can be when this current government falls apart, they are ready to go in. It's like in Colombia. They negotiated with the Colombian rebels, the communist rebels, to give them a seat in government if they stop their revolutionary activity. So they stopped their revolutionary activity. They got into power. Now they've just shot the conservative candidate.
And they did this in South Africa. They negotiated, and they, instead of hanging Nelson Mandela, which is what I think they should have done for capital crimes, they let him out. Let him be a hero. Let him come to power, and the communists could get into the government there. And now, what are the communists doing? They're now taking the property of the Christians and the farmers, and they were for years putting tires and gasoline around the black workers, farmers, or black bus drivers or police that wouldn't go along with them. They were burning they were burning other blacks who wouldn't go along with the communists. But how did it happen? They negotiated with the communists.
Look, and this is the whole point, isn't it, Brannon? There is no appeasing this. The communists have a goal of complete control over the country, and they will take every concession you give them, and they will never be happy with that till they've got complete power. Every concession is a victory for them, and it's just a period of consolidation till they come up with the next demand. So going soft on these protesters and maybe getting a couple of weeks off and, you know, things settle down till the next time is a loss. It diminishes confidence in the government, diminishes confidence by the people in the government, and empowers the radicals. You've got to understand, China and its allies want to destroy America. Destroy, not outcompete, not rival. Destroy physically this country and the population thereof. And they have a whole army of traitors in America, communists, and other radicals who want to assist them in that because they think they might be the overlords after the revolution. And if we don't deal with that and understand that this is a systematic process of revolution, we're going to go under. Now revolutions have been fought off before. We know we just have to push it back down. We have to push this pyramid back down. But that's not going to happen without resolve. And hopefully President Trump's got enough resolve.
So now we're at the minor military and paramilitary actions. Well, when you start seeing more guys out there with AR-15s and grenades and body armor that look like, you know, military-aged males who've had training, you'll know you got your minor military and paramilitary activity, and they've come into the country and they're out there fighting. Then you have your larger scale military and paramilitary actions. Then you have your international strategic communications. And this is where other communist countries, I'm guessing, and Islamic countries start telegraphing in about how horrible America is, how bad Donald Trump and those people are with him are, and that America is under a fascist regime, and the country and the UN and all these people need to come to the aid of the people that are under the attack of the fascists. Is that what this means, international strategic communications?
Yes, it is. And that's how South Africa was taken down, for instance.
Yes.
The whole world. And that's the big war in Israel right now. You know, that Israel's an apartheid state, that Israel's a fascist state, that Israel is massacring civilians, Israel is an illegitimate state. That's the same that was applied to South Africa and to Somoza's Nicaragua and to and to Israel today and to America now. It's the same strategy.
And then you negotiate a settlement, which is what they did in South Africa, as I said a while ago. And now you have the communists fully in power, and President Trump is having to give refuge to Christian, capitalist, white farmers in America to flee genocide. So much for the negotiated settlement. How? By the way, did they keep their word when they negotiated a settlement to the other side, the communists?
Not a bit of it, and they never will. You know, how many agreements has Putin kept? You know, how many agreements has any communist dictator ever kept? An agreement is just a stalling tactic. That's all it is. That's all it is. And look, okay, the South Africans are coming here. So where do we go?
Yeah, we have nowhere to go. Nowhere. Let me give you a couple of quick quotes here before we wrap. Pull that down there if you would, guys. Let me go to a PowerPoint presentation. Now, this is something, and we won't have time to go through it all tonight, but this is something that you and I discussed a long time ago, if I can find the right, and I've got so many PowerPoint up here tonight, Logan. I can find the right PowerPoint real quick. I have way too many PowerPoints opened. There it is. Now, this is one you and I did back in 2020. The pre-Marxist revolutionary riots of 2020. Okay, you and I went through this on TV over 5 years ago. And here's where, back in 2016, we were talking about Black Lives Matter, Muslims and Marxists agitating for civil war and revolution. And here we are again. Former communist Philip Abbott Luce in Road to Revolution wrote, all of us as good communists were responsible for some work in the riots, and each of us longed for the possibility that Harlem would herald the beginning of a nationwide war. Sound familiar? John Stormer in None Dare Call It Treason said, quote, Cincinnati Police Chief Jacob W. Scout charged that 4 months of firebombing and guerrilla-type violence followed an April 29, 1966 speech in which agitator Stokely Carmichael urged Negroes, as they were described then, to fight the police and burn the city. St. Louis Dispatch, July 26, 1967, reported that this is Stokely Carmichael. He was part of the Black Panthers, right? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
In a meeting in a meeting in Havana with Latin American communist leaders declared, quote, in Newark, New Jersey, we applied the war tactics of the guerrillas. We are preparing groups of urban guerrillas for our defenses in the cities. The price of these rebellions is a high price one must pay. This fight is not going to be a simple meeting. It's going to be a fight to the death. Get a gun. I don't care if it's a BB gun with poison BBs. America's got to come around or black people are going to burn it down, end quote. And then a special county grand jury that investigated the riots in Cleveland, Ohio in 1966 said this jury finds that the outbreak of lawlessness and discord was both organized, precipitated, and exploited by a relatively small group of trained and disciplined professionals at this business. They were tied and abetted willingly or otherwise by misguided people of all ages and colors, many of whom were avowed believers in violence and extremism, and some of whom are either members or officers of the Communist Party. And then, of course, we showed you the mini manual of the urban guerrilla, okay? We showed you these things. We have Gus Hall, 1972. Communist leader. He ran for president in the 70s and 80s. Quote, our electoral policy has for some 25 years been expressed in the phrase, the three legs of a stool. The stool was constructed at a time when the party was under sharp attack. The concept was built on the ideas that when the two legs, namely the Constitution Party and the forces of political independence, get strong enough, then and only then would the stool sit on three legs. But until that day comes, the one operational leg would be the liberal wing of the Democrat Party. That's what's going on now, right? And now you're seeing the other legs, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. But the liberal wing of the Democratic Party is what the communists have been using for the last 30 years to build up their power in this country. Chris Murphy, Kamala Harris, Karen Bass, all perfectly good examples. Joe Biden.
Before he died in 24, Lenin declared, quote, first we will take Eastern Europe, then the masses of Asia, then we will encircle the United States, which will be the last bastion of capitalism. We will not have to attack. It will fall like an overripe fruit into our hands, end quote. I mean, I have so much on this stuff. We have so many, the history, you and I know the history.
Yeah. Well, this has been going on for 100 years. Like there was almost a communist revolution in America in the 1920s. The Palmer raids were instigated and they sent back 7,000 Russian communists back to Russia. That's what got J. Edgar Hoover started. Most Americans have no idea of that history. But they've been going ever since for over 100 years, and they've been getting a little bit stronger. And what is different now than was then is Christianity is so much weaker, and the public education system has been so subverted that the revolutionary potential for this country is way bigger now than it was then. Our kids, our churches have been rotted out, so they're not the leaders of the community they used to be. We don't have that foundation we had. We don't have that faith in America. And many of our kids believe that America is an evil country and that our founding fathers were corrupt, rotten slave owners. So why would you defend people like that? That's the difference. That's why what is coming up is more possible now than it was in the past.
Because they have turned our own children and grandchildren into domestic terrorists, or would-be domestic terrorists, which is what Alan Dershowitz said on my show several months ago. He said, watch, some of these young people now chanting Intifada and From the River to the Sea, some of these college kids are going to be turned into terrorists. And what did you see?
Yeah.
Some young guy just killed the 2 Jewish young people coming out of the Jewish Museum in D.C., worked for the Israeli Embassy. And I had Alan Dershowitz back on. I said, sir, you said this was going to happen. He said, yes, because I watched the Weather Underground take college students and turn them into domestic terrorists.
Yeah, and that's right. And that is what is happening now. I'm sure these groups are being formed now. I'm sure there are they've had the John Brown gun clubs for some time, training leftists in weapons use. We know that the Venezuelans have been involved in training young Americans. We know other countries have as well. And I can guarantee you there are groups of young Americans now who are getting ready for terrorist attacks and violent revolution.
Well, remember when you and I showed this back in 2020, burn down the American plantation, a call for revolutionary abolitionist movement, 10 steps. Liberation will be won by any means necessary. We will destroy the state, police, military, corporations, and all those who run the American plantation. 3, we will live with dignity in a world without prisons. 4, systems of punishment will be abolished. There will be no law to enforce, no money to protect. 5, revolutionary justice will be determined by those who are oppressed. 6, there will be no government, no person or group will have power over another. 7, communities will make decisions about how they live and will make sure that everyone has what they need to live a dignified life. 8, land is not property. It's alive, communal, and must be protected. 9, alongside international comrades, we will destroy all the borders for the free movement of people everywhere. Wow. 10, militant networks will defend our revolutionary communities. Liberation begins where America dies. Of course, when this happened in Cuba, are the people there today? Are they living with dignity and everything that they need? No, this is all a lie. Only the top end up with power, and all the middle class is destroyed. All the business owners are destroyed. All the entrepreneurs are destroyed. And you end up with, like we have in Cuba today, everybody, whether you're a doctor or a ditch digger, you get a bag of rice and some other things that, are minuscule, and that's your wage, regardless of your skill set. True or false?
Absolutely, 100%. Communism is about centralizing all wealth and all power in a very few hands. The middle class is the enemy. Just remember back in the Ferguson riots in 2014, there was a lot of black-owned businesses in Ferguson. It was a black community. There was a strong black middle class. What do you think the rioters burnt down first? It was all those black-owned businesses. We saw
a lot of that in Minneapolis as well, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Because they want 2 classes. They want an upper class and a revolutionary impoverished proletariat who has nothing to lose and will try and get what it can by destroying the upper class. That's what they're doing. The middle class is the stabilizing strata in any society. They're not the wishy-washy elites. They're not the criminal underclass. They're the stable middle class with good values. That's what the war is against. If you can destroy the middle class, you'll end up with a revolution, and that revolution will end up with a very small cadre of people in power who will have absolute control over all of us. This is not about equality. This is about the most unequal society you can find. Communism is completely the opposite of equality. If you want to share the wealth around, the American free enterprise system is the best one in the world to do that.
And what we're being told tonight is that there are reports, I can't confirm them, but there are, because I'm sitting at the news desk here, but there are reports that the mayor of Los Angeles is advising illegal invaders or immigrants how to avoid ICE. So and we are getting reports tonight, too, that this is spreading to other cities. Closing comments?
Well, this is what we predicted, Brannon, and I'd like to be the biggest. I think both of us would like to be the biggest fools in America tonight. But this is happening. This is revolution. The question is, do enough people recognize this and take the necessary steps to shut this down and dismantle the revolutionary operations in this country? That's what's required now. President Trump, I hope somebody informs you of this, because I don't know if you've got quite the message yet, but this needs to have resolute action, or we're going to see massive instability like we've never seen before.
Yep. And it starts with people helping their family and friends understand the worldview, the philosophies, the ideas, the enemies, foreign and domestic, that are behind this, and not the window dressing that this is just people who are oppressed wanting to be able to work at Home Depot or on construction sites and families split up. That is the window dressing. That is the, quote, moral high ground. That's the moral camouflage that the Marxists, the Islamists use to make a cause seem like it's the moral, just, right thing to do. What it's really about is, as we've already seen, destruction of a society, destruction of law and order, destruction of institutions, the trust in government, respect for the rule of law, respect for the police. I mean, it's all about what we've laid out tonight, not the window dressing, where people are sitting at home going, well, I don't like what I'm seeing on television, but I really don't think they ought to be raiding Home Depot or job sites and taking these poor people who've been here for 10, 20 years, paying taxes and separating families. I just don't think they should be doing that. I think there's got to be some kind of common ground here we find and get back to life. They don't understand that's all the window dressing for the communist, Marxist, red-green Islamic revolution.
Well, that's what Black Lives Matter talked about, liberating and stopping discrimination against black people. But in their manifesto, they talked about destroying the nuclear family.
That's exactly
what had that
right.
got to do with it? Hasn't the black community suffered from the destruction of the nuclear family more than anyone else?
Absolutely.
So this is about revolution. These causes, peace, anti-racism, open borders. This is all nice sounding stuff. It's all to camouflage the revolution.
100%.
Revolution.
And again, Trevor, how many shows have spent over an hour tonight? Almost what? How long have we been talking to Trevor tonight, Logan? An hour and a half. How many shows have spent an hour and a half tonight explaining this history?
Don't think many, Brannon, so congratulations for you for doing it.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations for being a broadcast partner we keep turning to year after year after year, as documented in our history, because there aren't many people I can have a conversation with about this. There really aren't. I mean, my Rolodex has only got 2 or 3 names on this, okay? Because there's not many historians like yourself. And by the way, yes, we're hearing that Donald Trump is calling out 700 Marines, right? Let's remember what George H. Bush did during the Rodney King riots.
One is the urgent need to restore order. What followed Wednesday's jury verdict in the Rodney King case was a tragic series of events for the city of Los Angeles. Nearly 4,000 fires, staggering property damage, hundreds of injuries, and the senseless deaths of over 30 people. To restore order right now, there are 3,000 National Guardsmen on duty in the city of Los Angeles. Another 2,200 stand ready to provide immediate support. To supplement this effort, I've taken several additional actions. First, this morning I've ordered the Justice Department to dispatch 1,000 federal riot-trained law enforcement officials to help restore order in Los Angeles, beginning tonight. These officials include FBI SWAT teams, special riot control units of the U.S. Marshals Service, the Border Patrol, and other federal law enforcement agencies. Second, another 1,000 federal law enforcement officials are on standby alert should they be needed. Third, early today, I directed 3,000 members of the 7th Infantry and 1,500 Marines to stand by at El Toro Air Station, California. Tonight, at the request of the governor and the mayor, I have committed these troops to help restore order. I am also federalizing the National Guard, and I'm instructing General Colin Powell to place all those troops under a central command.
How is that? How is that back in the early 90s, 92, any different than what President Trump's doing tonight? But listen to the media. Did you hear the media back in 92 calling President George H. Bush a fascist for doing that?
No, look, that was the appropriate response at the time. And President Trump knows what the appropriate response is now. And I hope he is willing to carry it through. And the American people will thank him for it if he does.
Yep.
You know, he's a tough guy. He's not a stupid man. He will. I think he will deal with this appropriately. But they're going to put the left are going to push this as far as they can. and it's got to be shut down straight away.
And President Trump was asked about arresting Tom Homan arresting Newsom today. He seemed like that was kind of an interesting thing. But again, I don't know. I mean, that would certainly help shut it down. I think the mayor and the governor are encouraging this.
Well, look. I think there's good grounds for investigating these people. Now, I just want to say, I'll tell you one state that's going to get less of this than any other, and that's my home state of Florida.
Of course,
because Ron DeSantis has done so much to shut down the Freedom Road Socialist organization in this state. He has taken a very hard line, not by name, but by their activities. They hate him here. And they have been very quiet in this state compared to other states. I think a lot of the Freedom Road people here, and this is a big Freedom Road state, will go to other states to create trouble. So that just proves, by taking a hard line with these people, they do respond to that. They will curb their activities if they're going to suffer big consequences for what they've done.
TrevorLoudon.com. TrevorLoudon.com. You can get his books there. He's got a lot of information there, folks. I hope you'll check it out. TrevorLoudon.com. Let me show his website real quick. There it is, and all his excellent books that have so much history, which, by the way, have a lot of history about a lot of the groups that are involved still in America today, these socialist groups. You need to find out more about it. All of his research and work. You can check it all out at TrevorLoudon.com. You can also find him on social media. Trevor Loudon 1, the number 1. Trevor Loudon number 1. Again, TrevorLoudon.com. As always, Trevor, thank you for all you do to try to help people be informed and knowledgeable and understand the worldviews and the philosophies ruling the day so we might combat them.
Well, thank you, Brannon, and always a pleasure being on the show. And a big show of gratitude to all your followers and supporters. I know you've got a very, very loyal bunch of viewers out there, people who really care about this country. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us for an hour and a half tonight. Trevor Loudon, folks. TrevorLoudon.com. All right, guys, I told you. How long did we go with him, Logan? An hour and a half? An hour and a half. No commercial breaks. I told you. And you know how many networks? They'd be worrying about making money. Nope. We're putting education and information first. I got one more guest tonight who's going to warn about a individual running for office who may be queuing up to run for vice president or president or get into a cabinet of a White House in the future for the Democrats. You probably don't know about this individual. Maybe you ought to, because our next guest is going to tell us about an individual who's got a primary for the Democrat Party to run for governor of a certain state and maybe the future, one of the future leaders of the Democrat Party. You need to hear about who she is tonight. But folks, we just went an hour and a half. No commercial breaks. Did you appreciate it? When you go to worldviewfoundation.com, this is one of the best ways you can support us right here. Worldviewfoundation.com. Hey, if you say, Brannon, I want to thank you and Trevor spending an hour and a half on this and all the work and all the research, I'm going to contribute $10 tonight. Would you go there right now? I'm going to contribute $20. Would you go there? Maybe you could do 50, 100, 200, 500. What can you do tonight, folks? You know what will be really demoralizing for me? Is when I get off the air tonight and I find out nobody wanted to give anything after we just served up an hour and a half with no commercial breaks of great information, understanding, so you can have knowledge, the acquisition of truth. So you have wisdom, the application of that truth. So don't discourage me tonight. When I go and I check, hey, how did we do tonight? Were people watching and appreciating and supporting? Please go right now. Worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Worldviewfoundation.com. If you prefer to use our phone number, just leave a message for Melissa, or you can text her. And you know what she'll do? She'll call you back. She'll call you back if you leave a voicemail or text her, and she'll help you make a contribution over the phone if that's what you prefer to do. Okay? Worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is our political correspondent, Mark Nton. Mark, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Brannon, thanks for having me back.
So you're in New Jersey. You're following New Jersey politics, but pretty much, all of these races impact everybody, regardless where they live, because whoever controls the House of Representatives is going to help control the future of America. So we have to pay attention to every congressional race, right? Because there's a thin margin for the Republicans. Now, you've been following a lady who is a congresswoman right now. So again, I don't know who's going to replace her, but she's a congresswoman right now, and yet she's decided she wants to be governor, apparently. And the Democrat primary for governor in New Jersey is Tuesday, tomorrow, which would be June 10th, correct? So who is this lady?
Yeah, so she's a congresswoman. She's in North Jersey, and I want to sort of get into to describe her campaign. But before I do, Brandon, if I could just paint the picture, right? So,
okay.
If you know, 2024 election, President Trump he nearly returned New Jersey red. It was Harris 52, Trump 46. That's the closest a Republican has come since 1992. And her progress is down 10% from Biden. So on the Republican side, it's Jack Ciattarelli and Bill Spadea, amongst others, who are still in the race. However, with the Trump endorsement, I would say Jack Ciattarelli he's going to win. But because of that, I said, let me spend time with the Democrats. Let me go in the Democrat campaign and follow them. So I followed them all. And ultimately, my pick is Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. And I can tell you why. Okay. One is I've listened to all their messages, and I think it's important that if I may, Brandon, I'll break down sort of her competitors. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Ras Baraka, you guys know him. He's the Newark mayor. He was arrested at the jail inside his town. Charges were later dropped. But he was also captured in a campaign event, speaking at a large predominantly black audience where he called ICE modern day slave patrols. So he's been running sort of a shock and awe, very, very racist campaign. I don't think it's going to take him very far in New Jersey. Stephen Fulop, he's the mayor of Jersey City. He has ran an interesting campaign where he has been supporting down ballot candidates who are primarying out incumbents in these lower offices. So he's taking a very radical, aggressive, sort of trying to drum up new support. I saw him Thursday night at a crypto party in his own town, where also Bill Spadea was there. And Fulop, he did not have the energy. He was essentially laughed at on stage. Spadea did much better than him. But if you can't sort of garner that own support in your own town, and you're really messing with the party, it's a long shot. So I don't pick him. Josh Gottheimer, congressman, North Jersey. He's Mikey Sherrill's, I guess, near peer in here. But the only thing I see of him right now is he still has money. Okay, he still has money, but the primary is tomorrow. So I'm not really sure what he's waiting to do with that. And he has struggled to even meet campaign, stopping points in South Jersey. Mikey Sherrill has not. She's been all over South Jersey as recent as last week. So I think Gottheimer, I think he messed up. I think he's out, despite still having the largest war chest with money, right? Spiller and Sweeney's Democrat powerhouse, but that's sort of in the past. He lost to Ed Durr once. Remember Ed the trucker, and Spiller is a big union teacher. That sort of angle he's trying to play, but he doesn't really expand beyond that. So this leads me to Mikey Sherrill. Her resume is strong. She always starts out with the same thing. Former Navy helicopter pilot. She was a U.S. attorney. She's sophisticated. She's smart. Her campaign is very organized, Brannon. I actually went and followed her staff as we went canvassing some districts. They are organized, they are structured, and they execute. I watched them. They're a well-oiled machine, and she has the support throughout New Jersey. Haven't seen that with any other candidate. So that leads me to believe this is contextually from my observations, not so much numerically, although the numbers would suggest that she's going to win tomorrow. But I think that she is going to win the Democratic nomination tomorrow, the primary, but I'm calling her the biggest threat to Jack Ciattarelli, who I'm expecting to win. I kind of want to expand on that at a later date, but I want to tell you she's a major threat to the Republicans this election in New Jersey.
And how so? I mean, if she
Sure.
How so?
So she, unlike sort of the clown show I described with Ras Baraka or the long distance shot with Philip or even Gottheimer, Mikey Sherrill, when she speaks, she doesn't pander to the extremes, so she's not losing them, and she's not losing anybody else. What she's focused on is she will talk about Trump no matter what. The questions she takes, half them are always Trump, okay? And she talks about fighting Trump in the courtroom. It's where they've seen the most success. People are supporting this. She's not talking extreme rhetoric, although you may or may not like it, but especially with lawfare against the president, there's a long history of that. But that's where she sees the success. That's where she sees the efforts. That's where she wants to bring it from New Jersey. Now, as far as what she wants to do inside New Jersey, she's very big on shared services and cutting down costs that way. So what she's doing, in my observation, is she's not trying to lose her base. She's simply trying to garner rational support. And when she was at a diner event just earlier this week that I was at in Deep South Jersey, she sat down with some quote unquote MAGA women. They never heard from her. But when she left and when they were done, they expressed how much they were glad that she listened to them. And they are going to her website because, as they said, they're quote unquote not MAGA crazy. So she is a threat, and she's a unifier, and she's not beating the extreme drums we've seen from other Democrats. So that's why she's standing up.
But you don't think she's going to be able to win the governorship, correct?
I think she is. I would favor her.
Oh, you would?
I would.
You think she'll win the Democrat primary? You think she will then go on to likely become the governor of New Jersey? And you think, if I'm hearing you correctly, then this is someone that people should be paying attention to, because it sounds like she might be able to go and use her position as governor as a launching point to run for president.
Yes, that's the very long path. But what I'm trying to do is, your audience is very conservative, so to them, I'm sounding the alarm. Okay, she is, I think, a major threat. Is how I would put this.
A threat to our freedoms, our as a country.
Yeah, and a threat to continuing the America First, continuing the GOP, whereas trying to get New Jersey red again. New Jersey is primed, and she, as I see it, is the biggest threat to take that away.
So let me ask you this: do you think she would come on my broadcast? Because I'd like to interview her. I asked Trevor Loudon today. I said, Trevor, why do none of these liberals, Islamists, Marxists, globalists, whatever they are, why do none of them take me up on my offer to come onto my show? I'm a nice guy. I've never mistreated anybody on the air. I mean, anyone that's listened to my radio show for a gazillion years knows that generally if people call in and disagree with me, as long as they're not lying, and hurling lies or slander at me, as long as they're reasonable, in their presentation, as far as, again, not sitting there just lying about me, because if they come on and they're just going to personally attack me, then obviously I'm not going to tolerate that. But if they just come on and say, hey, I disagree with you, here's why. My audience listens to me on radio notes. I give those people the whole rest of the show. I will spend more time with them than I will any other callers, because it's good radio, number one. But number two, I want people to see I'm a nice guy. You can disagree with me, and I can still be nice and civil with people. So there's no reason why I don't think this young lady should want to not come on my show, right?
I think there's a solid chance that we can get her on, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons, and then I want to go into what the GOP needs to do to keep her from winning. Okay, so I've talked about the threat she is. I should probably tell you how I see to mitigate that, right?
Okay.
But I think she'll come on because what she said very early on in her campaign is she looked and said, how did quote unquote we, how did as she put it, the Democrats lose so badly to President Trump and nearly lose New Jersey? So her analysis was, she said that President Trump effectively used the new media. He used, as she called it, podcast media, podcast shows, and she has made her team focus on doing that. She was on the Breakfast Club, and she's been willing to go. She said she would go into other alternative medias, quote unquote alternative medias, and she has. So when I spoke to her, she said she gave a preliminary yes. Of course, you know how this business works. Yes to your face and yes on camera are two different things. So I think there's a solid chance we'll get her on. I think she'll do it. And I think, I know, you would treat her fairly. And
Absolutely. I'm nice to everybody, and I'm particularly a gentleman when it comes to ladies, because that's just how my mother raised me. So I would gladly be a wonderful host, kind to her, and give her an opportunity to speak her mind. We can agree where we agree, we can disagree where we disagree, but at least we're fair and trying to show both sides, which is what I try to do all the time. Just very few people will pick me up on it. I hope that when we post this broadcast online, Mark, that you will send this to her and say, look at what he had to say. Yes. Look at the guy. He wears a suit. I mean, he wears a suit and a tie. He's pretty old school. He's from the South. He's from Tennessee. He's from Mississippi, but lives in Tennessee. And is a gentleman. He's just a good Southern gentleman. That's what he is, and a professional broadcaster. So hopefully she'll take me up on it, because I'd love to start a trend here where some of these folks on that side of the aisle will start coming on my show.
Right. Well, I think what sort of when I spoke with her press secretary that made sense is I showed her my Twitter and the reporting that I've been doing on her. And if you look at this, there's not many journalists that follow her to the extent I have, or none that have been following her as early on as I have. So whether they may get nervous or not with me around, I am what they have. And if she wants to expand her base, she probably should take up. But I believe she will. But is she perceived as being moderate enough to pick up independent voters? I think her message is. Her reputation is probably a little bit further left than her message. Because I've listened to her messaging, but we would have to see.
How's her voting? Is it how far left is her voting?
Her record is pretty left, but I can't comment on all her votes. I don't know her that well. I know the campaign. I've been following that.
So what I guess I hear you saying though is if she's going to leave Congress, are they pretty secure in that they could not lose her seat to the Democrat Party if she's going to go run for governor?
Well, she would be obviously involved in sort of choosing her replacement. So I see.
But is her district one that's a safe district for Democrats?
It is now that she won it, and she has won re-election before. So she takes pride. That's a big feather.
Okay, so when you say she's kind of a threat to our republic or liberties or freedoms or way of life, is that you perceive her as being someone who's not just running for governor, but who's running for governor to lay the foundation to be a VP or a presidential candidate?
She very well could do that. I don't know if I can look that far into her future, but I'll say this. I think you're picking it up because New Jersey, if she can hit that stepping stone and be the governor of New Jersey's not exactly in a great place, which reminds me that, I would say things can always get worse. But there's a lot of opportunity that even a Democrat could pull up from the Murphy job that we've seen the last 8 years. Mm. So if she gets this, there is a ton of opportunity for her, and the White House or a cabinet position or something is definitely going to happen. But if I may, Brannon, because I dropped a lot of black pill in here, I'd like to lay out sort of the strategy as I see it that the GOP would have to do in order to beat her in a heads-up match in November. So one, and this is the biggest, Trump has to be doing good and looking good, not just doing good, okay? And the reason is it's, obviously performance is everything, but you need the appearance. So with what's happening around the country in LA and everything like that, the performance may be solid. Now the appearance has to match that. So I think that's number one as far as getting the people back out in New Jersey who did nearly give him the state. They need to return to the polls. So there's the Trump factor, okay? The next thing is nationally, okay? All the PACs, all the national money, it all needs to come to New Jersey. It all needs to come into this race, okay? Because if it's only New Jersey and New Jersey fights this alone, I don't think it's enough. So there needs to be national support this election in November on the GOP side. And lastly, I would kind of describe them as sort of special forces. That would be you're going to need Scott Pressler. You're going to need Scott Pressler. You need Scott Pressler operations, and you're going to need Brandon Strzok with the walkaway movement. You're going to need guys like that, people who will play the special forces, the special teams, and get additional votes and make additional content and really win over anybody that is available, especially young people. Those I say those three elements, you need them all, and then maybe this hill is takeable. But that's the only chance, Brandon. That's the chance New Jersey
Well,
has.
this may be one of those situations where we'll be looking back at this tape a few years from now saying, hey, that's where we introduced the lady that's now running for president. We tried telling everybody to pay attention to her, that she was viable, she was trying to run in the middle, and that she had a way about her and a platform to move forward. But like usual, Republicans were a day late and a dollar short, and here she is. She's going to take the White House. So maybe there'll be one of those, or she'll be a VP, or as you said, in the cabinet. So here is maybe our introduction to the broader American community on a candidate that people should be watching, paying attention to, and listening to what her positions are. And maybe, hopefully, she'll come on here and we can have a conversation and find out about what is her worldview, her values, her philosophies, where she want to take the Garden State, and if she has any inspirations beyond being governor of New Jersey.
Yes, Brandon, and I guess I would depart with saying this. These are my observations on actually being there and being on the ground. And, I think was it Joe Biden who said it, it's not the votes that counts, it's who counts the votes, right? So, I'm going to leave with a little bit of hedge. I'm not going all in. Okay. But I'm going big though. I'm going big in the Democrat, primary here.
In other words, she has the potential to be a major rising star in the Democrat Party. That's what I hear you say.
Yes, she is. She's palatable to the masses, not so cringe and fringe, and I think that's going to serve her well.
Well, I hope she'll come on our program. I really do. I hope she'll come on, and I know you're going to extend the offer. We're going to send her a link to this once it's posted, and hopefully she'll pick us up on the offer to come on and talk about her platform, what she stands for, and why she wants to be governor of New Jersey.
Yes, Brandon.
Mark Nton checking in, folks, our political correspondent there in the Northeast in New Jersey. Follow him there on X. You see his X handle right there. Oh, it just went away. At Mark Nton 9. At Mark Nton 9. Reporting here for Brannon Howse Live. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Brannon.
All right, folks, before we go tonight, this would be a great opportunity for you guys to get ready for what could be coming. I would urge you go right now to Worldview Store. Let me go there. Sorry, I caught you off guard there, Logan. Worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. I would urge you to go there. I'm constantly prepping and preparing for more. And I got enough to barter with, too. So if you want to get freeze-dried food that tastes really good, we've put it in front of people. They didn't even know it was freeze-dried. They're like, really? This is freeze-dried? Yeah, it's real food. It's real food. It's just been freeze-dried. You're just bringing it back after you add some water, some heat, some boiled water. You boil water and boom. We got emergency medical kits, EMT bags. We have so many things that you need. So please consider going there, worldviewstore.com. We have a fall conference coming up, by the way, October 3rd and 4th. Wow, won't this be a time to have Gordon Chang with us? Another Chinese person tonight, tied to Wuhan, trying to bring in over the weekend, Sunday, a biological weapon. Won't it be a great time to hear from Gordon Chang and Hadia, former Muslim, now Christian, who worked in the intelligence arena, Andy Woods, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. Sidney Powell, weaponization of our government. What the Dems are planning, the Marxists are planning. Alex Newman. There's only 350 seats available for the national conference, our 22nd annual National Worldview Conference. But you'll also find all the prepper gear you need, folks, and food. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. By the way, this would also be a great opportunity for you to go ahead and get a solar generator. Should these knuckleheads decide to go after the power grid, you can get a solar generator. They have all kinds at Worldview Store, and you can use that number if you want to ask questions. I have the Delta Echo 400. So you ask questions, and you can say, hey, I want to run my refrigerator, my microwave, or a lamp or two, whatever it is you want to do. They'll tell you what size you need. for what you want. And I would urge you to call. That way you get what you need. You don't want to get the wrong thing and, I bought one that was too small. Don't do that. Ask questions. They'll know what you need when you tell them what it is you're trying to operate, okay? Have your backup ready to go. Worldviewstore.com. Use that number, 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224. Remember, they have a sale on the Starlink right now. You get the Starlink for free. Over $600 value when you sign up for a 12-month plan of just $165 a month. And by the way, they have the portable Starlink. So if you want to take it on in your RV, your camper, out camping, if you want to take it into the duck blind, so you can keep track of the ball games while you're hunting. If you want to take it to your cabin and you don't want to pay for internet, you can just take your portable Starlink with you. Or you can fix it to the house. They have both. All at worldviewstore.com. And you know what else they have, of course, is they have the phones. They have the phones. So if you're looking for a satellite phone, they have the satellite phones like I have right here. I have the satellite phone. Okay? If they take down our power grid, and by the way, remember the general who's in charge of Edwards Air Force Base talked about the cell towers, they're going to be down. What do you think the military people have? They have satellite phones. So do you? Can you communicate with family and friends, even if you had a bivvy where you could use your existing phone, even though the cell tower part's down, you use it to compose the text, send it through the bivvy, and to your family member that has the bivvy on the other end. You want to stay in touch with your grandbabies? Your son, your daughter that's married, got your grandbabies? You might want to think about ways to communicate. All of this is at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right? That's about all we got time for tonight, I think. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Do you appreciate all we're doing here, folks? Love to hear from you. Will you go to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution? Look at all we pushed out tonight. Absolutely free of charge. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to take it and put it online. So tomorrow morning, you can go to worldviewtube.com, watch it again, or text it, email it to all your family and friends and say, hey, you might want to watch this segment with Trevor Loudon and Brannon Howse to get context, history, reason, logic. All right? Thank you for your support. Worldviewfoundation.com. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
And welcome. Glad you are with us on this June 9th, 2025. We're going to be joined right now by Trevor Loudon. The Marxists, the Islamists, they are rioting in L.A. And this is not new. I actually went to, I had Logan I do it myself. I had Logan do it last night and tell me about it. But I had him go to worldviewtube.com and type in guerrilla warfare. I had him type in guerrilla warfare. I said, Logan, how far back have I been warning the country that we were headed toward guerrilla warfare? And he found a broadcast going all the way back to 2009. In fact, there was even specific ones related to 2013 and forward that got very specific about the groups that would be behind them, the guerrilla warfare manual, and how these groups want guerrilla warfare in America. So we've been warning you since, I would say, consistently 2013 that these groups want guerrilla warfare in America. Well, that's what you're seeing in the streets. Absolutely 100% what you're seeing in the streets of LA. Now, the question is, who's behind it? Who's funding it? Who's encouraging it? And that goes from supposed non-government organizations all the way to socialist groups, Marxist groups. Have you noticed the folks are waving their Islamic flags, their Palestinian Hamas flags? That's the green of the red-green axis.